This is Iain Armitage, and you're listening to the Art of Kindness podcast.
Well, Iain, I am so excited to talk to you today. I am just such a fan. I saw you at the Creative Coalition recently, which honored our friends at kindness.org. I want to shout that out because they're great people, and you just seem like such a kind soul, so thank you for being here.
You're very, very kind. You are very much one as well, and I feel incredibly lucky. I kind of lucked out in the wildest way to be able to get to be a part of the stuff that I've been doing recently. It's been so much fun, and I feel very, very honored.
Well, I feel like you deserve it. And from the research I've done and just seeing you out there sort of in the world, you seem to conduct yourself with such kindness. So I'm grateful we have you in this industry. I'll just say that, and then I'll stop complimenting you. Or otherwise, I'll never stop. I probably won't stop.
Well, I was going to say, you're very kind yourself.
I
would expect it. I would expect it from you, and I would hope for it, certainly, from the title. But
thank you. Yeah, imagine if you log in here and I'm like, hello. I'm like just like a little Grinch, I mean, I am wearing green today, so it could go that way. Right off the bat, the first question I always like to ask people such as yourself that I'm sure gets stopped all the time with a lot of love and compliments, or at least I hope so, is how are you at accepting compliments? Because I feel like it can be a tricky thing.
It's weird. I don't know. It's kind of funny. I think I've gotten a little better, but it is such an odd and kind of crazy part of doing what I do because, on set, obviously, it's a job, and it's a job I love very, very much, but everybody has a job, and most people's jobs, I think acting is the easiest job on a film set by far, and it's the least taxing by far, and you get the most recognition for it. I think I'm probably one of the, in terms of jobs on set, one of the least hardworking people, and for some reason, because of the visibility of what I do versus what maybe a base camp PA would do, or a writer would do, or whoever, I get visibility from it. I get complimented. I get and I think it's so unfair. And sometimes when people say such nice and kind things about me, I'm always a little bit like, I don't deserve this at all. But thank you. You're very kind. But I legitimately I've done so little to deserve this.
Well, I would say you definitely deserve it, and other people also deserve it, because it is sort of a weird thing about our business, right? Like what you're saying. I think the people behind the scenes like being behind the scenes, but that doesn't mean they also shouldn't get the same amount of
and I think what I sort of try and do is I've gotten better at saying like thank you. That means a lot to me, but I always kind of try and say thank you, but I played a very small part in what was a very big job for hundreds and hundreds of people, and I am so grateful to all of them for facilitating what we got to do.
Yeah, that's so gracious. I love that. Everybody rewind that and listen to it, because I think that's a great way to accept a compliment right there. Before we get any further, I would also love to know, Iain, what is your definition of kindness, and how do you think it's changed over the years? Just a small morning question.
Yes, thank you. And can we follow it up with the meaning of the universe?
We can, Young Sheldon. I feel like if anybody would have that, I think it would be you. So thank you for adding that in.
Actually, funny enough to go on the smallest of sidetracks, my best friend, he's 16 years old, and he graduated college, I think 3 years ago now. He has his master's degree, and he's getting his PhD in like 2 years. So
what?
In terms of geniuses, I feel like he's the one to ask. I might have to send a quick text after this and ask if he's been working on it.
Please do. Was he like an inspiration for Young Sheldon? Because that's kind of funny that you would have a friend
No, it's
like
funny
that.
because we actually sort of met through the show. He mentioned, like 6 years ago, or maybe 7 years ago, he mentioned liking Young Sheldon. And then our parents started talking, and his mom and my mom are now like best friends. And we also get along crazy well. We text every day. I would consider him to be my best friend in the world. He's awesome and really funny. We also play video games together, and so he's an awesome.
Yeah.
But to go back to your question, I
just got a PS5, so offline, if you want to recommend me anything, we can get into that later.
But no, to get into your very philosophical and mean question, for a kind guy, I tend to kind of zoom in to I think you can look at it on such a big scale, and the way it affects somebody's life, but really I tend to look at kindness as on a much more micro level, because I think nowadays, especially in a time where so many people receive so much news and interaction and everything from social media and online, being able to smile at somebody or to compliment somebody on something that you think they might be proud of or might, have put a lot of effort into, or just to be able to talk to somebody and like know that you didn't make their day worse because of an interaction and hopefully made their day better because of it.
Yeah.
I think I think if you look at kindness as being too big of a thing, it can be hard to go about. I'm phrasing it very poorly, but I think when you
I think it's great.
Smile at somebody, just being able to say, "Hey, man, that color looks great on you," or "I love your watch," or "Your dog is so cute."
Not even wearing a watch, but
No, but just like being able to find something that somebody might have put effort into that day, or it's just I try and think, what did they look in the mirror before leaving the house and go, "Hey, that looks good on me," and then comment that.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, kindness is the little things like that. So I think that's a great definition, because you're right. People can get overwhelmed thinking, to be kind, especially maybe at your level, sort of, I have to donate so much money to this or
I
do
think
this.
you think like, what can I do in the world? And sometimes that's you can smile or help the old lady cross the street or do what like a small act that doesn't. And of course, donating to charity is still incredibly important. I live by the rule sort of that to whom much is given, much is expected. If you have been lucky enough to be in a position in your life where you have money to give to charity, give to charity. But at the same time, in your everyday life, there's not much you can do except for the little things that could make someone's day better. Which then can ripple outwards.
It does. And actually, the nonprofit I mentioned at the top, kindness.org, they have a lab that studies kindness. So it really is science. They have proven with research that kindness really is contagious, which is kind of cool. So what you're saying is spot on. I wonder if you sort of learned all this growing up in your artistic family, because both of your parents work in entertainment. I think you have actor, producers. How do you think that informed just who you are and your dream in the arts? Like, do you feel like it was always very accepted, or were they sort of the other way of like, trying to protect you and nervous that you would follow this crazy journey?
Well, it's kind of funny because I started off doing theater reviews, and for the first...
So good.
That would be very kind. For the first 6 years of my life, that was, we would see so many shows and travel all over. We'd be in London, we'd be in New York mostly, we'd be here at home in Virginia, and just seeing theater, and I enjoyed it so much, and I never thought... There was never a moment for me where I was, sitting in the audience and I thought, that could be me on that stage up there one day, making all these people clap. I just love theater. And when you're that young, what most agents look for is mostly just a kid who's social and can talk and feels comfortable in front of a camera. So we got a couple requests from agencies sort of saying, would you want your son to sign on with us, or we could represent him? And my mom never really said yes for a few reasons. Primarily because you hear so many awful stories from Hollywood of kids' lives getting ruined and just awful things happening. And, you hear so much about it nowadays, which I think was a really smart stance that she took. And I'm really appreciative that she's always been so protective of me, both in my career and outside of it. But eventually there's one agent who asked my mom, would you like us to represent? And she said no. And this agent, Jamie Pillett, said, would you be okay to come into our offices and just talk about why you wouldn't want him to be represented? Just to have a little chat about it. And my mom was like, sure, pretty set in my ways. I know my reasons. So she went in and they started talking, and Jamie had incredible answers for all my mom's concerns and queries. And so eventually she sort of left it up to me, and she said, would you want to try acting? And I was like, yes, very much. It sounds like fun.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of a balance of both. I think my mom is wonderful and very good about protecting me, and very smart in that regard, in all senses, whether it's physically, mentally, financially, emotionally. However, she's a wonderful parent. And I think also I've gotten a lot of freedoms and opportunities and things as well. So I think it's a good balance.
Yeah,
supported me, but kept me safe.
No, I mean, I think that's wonderful. I love the reverse psychology of getting into that meeting from the agency, who is so kind, by the way. Shout out to Jamie's office. Just even dealing with them over email was such a lovely experience. But
Jamie Pillett is an incredible, incredible person, and just a force of nature. I can't even describe it. She is so kind and so sweet, and such a killer at the same time. She's amazing.
Yeah, you want that. You want like a kind shark kind of
Yes.
navigating with you through the ocean.
Described her perfectly.
Yeah. Oh, okay, cool. Thank you. Well, thanks for coming. No, but you mentioned Ian Loves Theater, your reviewer YouTube page, which is such a treasure trove. Everybody go check it out. I did a deep dive on it again. No, if you go far enough, there will be. I'm friends with the current music director of Wicked, and I sent him the video of you singing Defying Gravity yesterday. I hope he don't mind, just because I thought it was so cute. I was like, and he just had a kid, and I was like, you'll think this is so great. Anyway, we've been dying over that page, and you keep it up a bit, which I love. Do you have a favorite show ever that you've seen? I know this is sort of a mean question.
No, it would have been a mean question. If you'd asked me like a year and a half ago, I wouldn't have been able to answer.
Okay.
I saw a show that is, I think, the best show I've seen in my life, and it has stuck with me and resonated with me so much.
Yeah.
It was Goodnight Oscar with Sean Hayes.
Oh! I'm so jealous you saw that. I missed that one.
I saw it 3 times. I would have seen it a million. It was incredible and absolutely phenomenal, and I loved it so much. Mr. Sean Hayes is so talented. And also, after I believe the second time we saw it, I got to meet him afterwards, and he was so sweet because I was sobbing, and he gave me a big hug. I left tear stains on his shirt.
Oh my gosh!
But he is such a kind man and ridiculously talented. If you don't know, in the show he plays Oscar Levant. He gives a wonderful performance. He doesn't look like him, but it is the best character acting I've seen in my life. He was so good, and I've never seen somebody embody a character so well. And it was just also so different from everything else I've ever seen him in. Everyone in the cast was so talented, and also at the end, he plays Rhapsody in Blue, or a shortened version of Rhapsody in Blue, about 7-8 minutes long. And it was the best thing I've ever seen on stage.
Wow. I'm so glad you had an answer for that. That was so fun. I heard amazing things about it, and we talked to him a bit at the Tonys that year. We were in the press room, and he was saying how his fingers were all injured from playing it so many times. Which
to ice them before and after the show,
Yeah, makes sense. It's like an athlete. Since we are the Broadway Podcast Network, I have a couple theatery questions. I know I mentioned before we started recording, you were on our friend Eli's podcast, Take a Bow. Everybody check it out. Such a great episode.
It's incredible.
With you guys vibing. And you kindly said that you listen to our network and different shows. So I'm wondering, do you have a dream show that you'd like to be in? I saw you did Shakespeare recently, which is so cool.
I did. It was a lot of fun.
It's a lot of work. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I think... In terms of theater or in terms of acting in general?
I guess acting in general on the stage. If you could be in a Broadway show tomorrow, would it be like Young Sheldon the musical? Would it be Little Shop of Horrors? I could see,
Oh God, Little Shop would be fun. I love Evita so much. It'd be really, really fun to I don't know even what character it would be. But getting to sing High Flying Adore would be pretty incredible.
That would be cool.
And then, gosh, let me think. I also love Sunset Boulevard.
So good. And it's
take you back 6 months. I was at the bottom of the barrel. Be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that score, and it's coming back, which is wild.
Yes. Oh my gosh, no! I saw a production in London recently, which I believe is coming to New York.
Oh, you saw it?
And it was amazing. It was absolutely fantastic, and it was so different and very stark staging, but so incredible. And the actress who played Norma, whose name I'm blanking
I think it's
on.
Nicole Scherzinger?
Yes.
The Pussycat Dolls. Yeah.
I think she was the one who played it. Yeah. She was phenomenal because she was. I don't even know how she more than inhabited Norma's character in such an impressive way, and throughout the show there's elements of dance and of course a lot of singing, and she's a very slight person, but she had such a powerful voice, and that was such an impressive thing to get to hear.
This is why you're a great reviewer, because the way you describe things is magical. And you touched on dance. I think you're a big tap dancer, so you could bring that to the stage, from what I heard. I'm tap dancing underneath under my little. I'm like laughing at how little I look compared to you.
And I look too big. I'm getting myself
no, I think it's hilarious.
Haircut.
I love it. No, your haircut is great. I was admiring it. I actually need one. Once I take these headphones off, it's like.
No, in terms of Warner Brothers haircut, when you're wearing a frame, you get a little buzz cut from that.
Yes, I love this. I was at Warner Brothers in the city recently, and your picture's
Oh,
all over those offices. You're everywhere, which is
I love Warner Brothers. I have a lot of love in my heart for those offices. I think Warner Brothers is a great company. And yeah,
oh
it's
yeah.
been cool to get to work for them for 7 years.
It's so cool. And I mean, let's get into that because, speaking of Warner Brothers, I do want to ask you about Young Sheldon. This show brings, I sound like Moira Rose now. I'm like, this show brings so much. This, this show, I feel like, brings so much joy to so many people. And I'm a little late to the party on it, but my wife has been obsessed with it for years. And she really bonded in like the kind of final days with her grandma, not to get too deep, but they would sit and watch Young Sheldon, and she would just say over and over again, "That boy's so cute," and giggle, and it brought them so much joy in those days. It's such a comfort show for her on the tough days. She'll like just rewatch an episode when she's feeling sad, and that's just one example. And so I wonder, what do you think makes this show so enjoyable across generations? Because we kind of need that in the world. We need that uniting front more than ever.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because it's an odd combination of things. I think number one, especially now. Oh my gosh, especially now where there's a lot of
Especially now. Yeah, sorry. Now we're both turning into
90s,
Moira Rose.
especially, which great reference by the way.
Thank you.
Especially now where there's such '90s nostalgia. I think it's nice because
Yeah.
our viewer base when we were just on network television was primarily how do I put this delicately? People who would have '90s nostalgia from living through it, which
There we go.
I think is a really our whole team. Again, this goes back to the point that I made that I did the least work on the show. Every single person in every department worked so hard to make our show so authentic, and I actually for a school project I got to do one day with every department and work with them and see what they did, and it was so cool because down to the paint effects to age the house. It looked so realistic, and from what I've heard from people, of course I was born in 2008, but it looked very, very realistic and similar to how it would have looked, a house would have looked in the 90s.
Yeah.
So I think for some people it was an actual nostalgia factor, and then for a newer audience and a younger audience, it was sort of nowadays there's a lot of 90s nostalgia fashion and trends and things, and I think it fit into that. Also, it really is a family show. There's not a lot of shows, at least I think there's not a lot of shows like that now. There's a couple shows I love watching with my mom. Another one, a CBS twin, is Ghosts, which is incredible.
Yeah.
And has Miss Danielle Pinnock from Young Sheldon. She was Ms. Ingram, our math teacher.
Oh,
And
yeah,
she is
so good.
phenomenal as Alberta. It's one of my favorite shows. And recently I got to meet a gentleman named Asher who plays Trevor on Ghosts.
I gotta watch the new one because we started the BBC one,
Yes.
the one it's based on.
They're both wonderful. It was funny because maybe it's just that good of a premise. I've never seen a show where I love both versions so much because you usually love the one you start with, and obviously I started with the American one because patriotism.
Wait, that's the Olympics theme. That's not just America. That was the wrong theme. Anyway.
America. But I love both versions so much, and they're just so talented.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's an odd kind of combination of a lot of elements, and we've gotten also very lucky. We have a fan base from Big Bang Theory coming over, and we also have people who now like Young Sheldon for Young Sheldon. And at the end of the day, I really do think that it's just a relatable story to a lot of people, even if it's not directly relatable. Being sort of a fish out of water in your environment is relatable to anybody at some point in their lives. Everyone's going to have a moment where you feel that way. And I think it's also nice, one thing that I'm really appreciative one thing I'm really appreciative of is the fact that it doesn't, it tends to make fun of everybody equally when it goes after somebody or something, and it's something that I have friends who are, on the farthest sides of the political spectrum in both directions who can enjoy the show, which means a lot to me because I think something that is unifying rather than something that's polarizing I'm very lucky to have been a part of.
Yeah, that's what we need more than ever. And I think I just want to highlight something you said a little earlier in that answer, which I think is brilliant, is that you got to go around on a school project and kind of spend the day in everyone's shoes on set. And I wish that was almost a requirement with SAG or Equity or any corporation, really, that during your training you had to spend, X amount of time during the day learning someone's job, because then you develop an appreciation for that person. Now I can't talk. An appreciation for those people.
Just like pitching.
Yeah, I know. We're like, people are going to listen to this. They're like, was this in another language? I'm like, no.
We're just a little drunk.
English. Yeah, just a little drunk on unhappiness to be here today.
Actually, that might be the case. I think you hit the nail on the head there.
Thank you. Boom. What if I had a hammer? That'd be crazy. Speaking of nails on the head, how would I do that transition? If you ever held a hammer growing up on no, that was so
actually
bad.
that's sort of a good transition, because one of the departments I worked with was construction.
There we go.
I got to hold a lot of nail guns.
Oh, okay. Well,
a little
we're
more
nailing
high tech than your grandpa's hammer. No,
nailing it. Yeah.
You're nailing that transition completely.
I'm famously bad with transitions on this podcast.
Don't worry, so am I. I'm good at dad puns, though. Very cringy dad puns.
Same. Oh, what's your best dad pun?
Oh gosh, well now you've put me on the spot.
Okay, you think about it and then just pop it into the conversation later.
Yeah, don't worry. I'm gonna sprinkle my awful sense of humor throughout our conversations. I think you hit the nail on the head through that transition was all right. But no, I'm gonna think of something much worse, enough to really make you cringe, and then I'll interject myself. Don't worry.
No, I'm already cringing because I'm myself. So don't even, not because of you, just because I can see myself. Well, what I was trying to get to is, growing up on television, I feel like that's obviously a pretty unique experience. And you seem like such a down-to-earth, lovely person. What was that experience like overall for you, and what do you think made your experience so positive?
Yeah, well, you're very kind to say that.
It's the truth.
You're very kind. It's a kind truth, isn't it? No, yeah. I think I've been very lucky. I think, number one, it's about the people that I have around me. I have always been surrounded with really, really good, really, really kind people. And especially on set, I get to work with Annie Potts, who is such a legend.
Love her.
Both in the theater community and in the acting community in general. She's been on so many... I recently saw Pretty in Pink and saw Annie Potts.
Yeah, I forgot she's the woman in Ghostbusters, too. I mean,
Of course, she's Annie Potts. She's effortlessly talented, I think, is the way I describe her. She just exudes confidence, and she's always funny, always ready for anything. I love her so much.
I might cut this up and edit it to make it seem like you're saying that about me. So if you see that on my actor website.
Always ready for anything. What a guy.
Plays Little Bo Peep in Toy Story. No, it's like, okay, wait, what? Wait, huh?
He's the guy from Ghostbusters.
With the glasses behind the table.
What a talented man.
Thank you. You gave me everything I need.
You don't even need to cut it up now. I'm so generous.
I don't.
But I think the people I've gotten to work with, both on screen and off, have always been so kind to me. And I think it's not really humility or being down to earth. I think it's more just the fact that I've gotten to work with such incredible professionals that I've learned from a very young age that nothing... First of all, it's a job, first and foremost. And if you get a big head about being in the acting industry or getting to do something that people enjoy or recognize you for, then you're the wrong kind of person to be in the acting industry. I think it's just treating everyone with respect also, and knowing that you are far from the most important person on set, and don't ever come in a diva-like way or being obnoxious to anybody. And I really just think it's having respect for the people you work for and the place you work, and, respect for everything in everyone's department. I think one thing I'm very lucky and grateful to the departments in Young Sheldon for letting me work with them for is one big question I would ask is, what is something that people in other departments do that makes your job worse or makes your job better? And I think getting to learn the sort of like little things you wouldn't even think of that can mess somebody up or can really, really help their day or their work.
Yeah.
End up being a much bigger thing than you'd realize. And I think it's just coming in prepared and being ready for the day ahead of you and just knowing what you're going to do, knowing your lines for the day, knowing what's going to happen. And if you do all those things, there's not much room to be big-headed and have a massive ego because you're working and you're working hard. And if you're working hard, you can be proud of what you've done. And I'm certainly proud and feel very honored to have been a part of Young Sheldon. But at the same time, I'm not. I think if you've put in work for something, it's very hard to and put in work with other people as a group and form that kind of camaraderie. It makes it much harder to be, like a credit hog, or to try and attention grab away from other people, because you see the work that other people put in and you're in direct contact with it. So I can't imagine anyone on our set, actor or otherwise, saying, well, let's be honest, I really carried the show. It's just not. When you see the work that everyone else puts in at the same time as you couldn't say that.
Yeah, it's so community-based. You're right. And I think what surprised me about Young Sheldon is that it's called Young Sheldon, and certainly we're following Young Sheldon, but it is such an ensemble show. I mean, everybody really shines every episode, and you fall in love with each character, which I'm sure was so much fun on set. And it kind of makes me wonder, too, during your downtime on set, what's your vibe? How do you show yourself, I guess, this sounds woo-woo, but self-kindness? Sort of like, what do you do in your downtime in your trailer? Are you hanging out with these people, or do you kind of need time to chill?
Well, it doesn't sound woo-woo at all. It's a really good question.
Well, thank you. I know you have like 87,000 hobbies that I've learned about. I mean, you're such an impressive person, so you might be doing one of those.
Person. I'm not. It's funny. I don't do any hobbies to get cooler or to gain any sort of. I do it just because I'm a massive nerd. I love linguistics. I love travel. I love all sorts of stuff. So I love learning random stuff. But in terms of showing self-kindness, especially on set, I think there are some, wherever you work, you're going to end up making close friends with somebody or somebody in some department or something you're doing. I love, and this is partially just because I'm a massive foodie, but our crafty trailer was wonderful. I would often go hang out there. Sometimes I'd help out. I really loved getting people's lunch orders ready and stuff and handing those out.
But it's dangerous. I was a crafty PA on a movie once, and I gained weight. Like, I just sat there. Someone would take an M&M, and then I would pour more in and then take some for myself. And then someone would take a Triscuit. You eat so much, which is great.
No, I understand the risks. I didn't. Don't worry. I had a scale with me.
You're like, I was standing on a scale constantly. Yeah,
no.
It's beautiful, but it's filling.
I'm very lucky again to be at that point in my life where my metabolism is fast enough that I can
enjoy it
like that, and it'll be gone. Which unfortunately, I think when I'm older, I won't be able to do that as much.
But you could try.
I could try. I don't know if I could succeed.
Yeah.
But I also think taking downtime to yourself is really important. I have a lot of good friends in the acting industry, and I know a lot of people also who've been acting for a longer time than I have, since they were around the age that I was when I started acting. And I think a good piece of advice to follow that a lot of real good professional actors I know say is treat your job like it's a job. You have to have a life outside of it, and you have to have your own friends. You have to have your own life. You don't need to go to every party. You don't need to go to every event. You don't need to constantly be hanging out with the people on set. And of course, when you're on set, be present, be there. And I love everyone on our set so much. So I've been lucky in that regard. But I think it's also about having a life outside of that, getting good sleep. Not always being
hard.
Not when I'm off set, not needing to come in and stand there. But I think in terms of hanging out with actors and people, Annie Potts has got to be peak. She's wonderful, but I love her.
She seems like it. Well, it's funny because your on-screen grandma is now making me think of my grandma, my nanny, who I talk about, and she listens to every episode, which is really sweet.
Oh my gosh! Hi,
Nanny, we love you. She's the best. She just texted me a quote from Glenn Close today, which was exactly what you said, which was have a life outside of acting. If you're going to succeed in this, it can't be your whole life. And you certainly live by that. I mean, I mentioned you have 87,000 hobbies as a joke, but you literally do. I mean, I think martial arts, linguistics, like you touched on, various languages. But that can be hard. What's your advice for people out there who are curious but just can't seem to find the motivation to start? Especially when you have a 9-to-5 job. Just to start, to sign up for a class, to
for acting,
try a hobby, just do anything that they want to do outside of their quote unquote job. Yeah. I feel like sometimes it can be hard to be motivated. I have a ukulele collecting dust under my bed that's been there for like 6 months from Amazon Prime Day. So,
well, gosh, that's a really good question. I think I tend to be the kind of person where I'll see something or learn about something that just sounds really interesting to me and kind of be motivated to to sort of hyper focus in on that and learn as much as I can about it.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting because sometimes that motivation is hard to find. I think the main thing is just thinking, number one, if you find a hobby or something that you might be interested in, finding local resources near you or looking up online if there's any classes in your area. Knowing how you learn is a really important thing too. If you're a visual learner, if you're an auditory learner, if you're a hands-on learner, there's a lot of different ways to intake information. So I think whether it's like, for example, with learning languages, I find it really helpful if it has a different alphabet system. The thing I find most helpful is first to learn how to read in that alphabet and how to write to a degree in that alphabet.
Oh.
And then I listen to a lot of music in that language. I research as much about the culture as possible before doing anything else. I like to watch cinema in other languages, and music is the primary thing, I'd say. And that also just gives you a good cultural basis once you start learning that language to be able to bond with people over. And then after that, starting some sort of a program that is pretty grammar heavy in that language. And also before even starting to learn the language, understanding the way the language works, if it's a gendered language, how sentences work, how, the order of, just how everything kind of works in that language as a whole, and then learning it. And there's so many great resources for that nowadays that are free.
Well, that's like the Apple Watch notifications sometimes really do sort of accost you. They're like, you didn't drink enough water today.
So bad.
It's like, get up. I'm like, okay.
You
Mom?
did not reach your movement goal yesterday. Maybe you could try a little harder today, and maybe one day you could reach it.
Maybe one day you
Get
can
off
move.
the couch and get your 12,000 steps in.
Yeah. I'm like, I just wasn't wearing my watch, okay?
I know.
Just sitting there eating at the crafty table.
I wasn't wearing it.
It's fine.
I think finding resources that'll help you is important. And sometimes getting someone or somewhere to hold you accountable is really good too. Like if you want to get fit, having a personal trainer is great because it's way harder to sit there at the gym and scroll on your phone not doing anything if you've got somebody screaming, do this thing right next to you.
Yes. And that's why I'm on a treadmill under the screen right now. You can't see my legs, but I am running.
I'm impressed. No, but it's weird because motivation is something that sometimes you'll be randomly inspired to you'll have it randomly and you'll get a lot of inspiration suddenly, and it's really hard to spark that if it's not there. But I think if you're passionate enough about something, you'll make time, and you'll kind of find a time where you'll feel much more passionate about it, and you just you get an urge to start. You get an itch.
Yeah, that's awesome advice. And then you scratch it because inspiration is sort of an inhale by definition. So just going outside, taking in anything, whatever it might be.
I said, "Isitiasia говорю по-русски," and now I speak Russian.
Oh! Well, I could do the accent a little bit. I heard you taking Russian on the episode I listened to on Take a Bow. I think you were talking about it, which is great. But that's awesome advice, knowing how you learn, having that awareness. I think a lot of us, even as actors, might not realize, well, the best way I learn lines is by walking around while I read it, or listening to it, or doing that sort of Shakespeare trick of just writing the first letter out and over again doing it. How do you learn lines as the master? Did you just get really used to it being on a TV set and having to learn it really quickly? Because it is a muscle.
Yeah, here's the thing, and it's funny because I have a trick that only works for TV, and on stage it really sucks for me because I'm very bad at memorizing lines for theater projects, but for stage or for film or for TV, it's so easy for me. I can have a 3-page long monologue on a show, and if it's going to be like in takes that we're doing, I can read it a couple times right before I go on set, and I have it locked in for the next 8-9 hours. Awesome. It's in my short-term memory, it is really, really easy to commit something quickly and then forget it right when I don't need it. But for something like stage, I have a really hard time, and I need to really kind of commit myself and memorize properly. Or
get an earpiece. I did a show once where, it was only because, no, I'm just kidding. The woman, she dropped out for medical reasons before opening, so they flew someone in, and she had an earpiece in and was incredible. And I was like, should we all just have earpieces? Why are we memorizing?
we could replace you with AIs while we're at it.
Oh, yeah, here we go. Well, we kind of did that before. I have another kind of big question about Young Sheldon that I want to make sure I ask you, which is, what are your hopes sort of for the legacy of Young Sheldon as it lives on? I mean, I picture sort of I guess even in decades from now, you'll probably be revisiting it on some anniversary show with the whole cast talking about how it was magical, and now there's like 3 other spin-offs or whatever it might be. So when you're
a lot of spin-offs.
yeah, when you're there and you're in all of them, while you're there, what are you thinking? Like, what sort of do you hope this show does for people over time as it lives on?
That's a really good question. I don't actually even hope for a crazy amount much. I sort of really just hope that at the end of the day, if you've had a hard day, you can put on an episode of our show and just chuckle a little bit or just feel a little bit better. I think it's so hard to even, I just want people to be able to laugh at it and have a good time watching it. I don't even want that much. I don't want it to be this major, massive thing. I just think that having a show that I hope it's comfort TV to somebody, and I hope people have good memories of it and look back on it well, because I think at the end of the day, the biggest compliment to a show like Young Sheldon or Big Bang or any other show that has been, not that I'm comparing us to Big Bang their way, but any show
no,
that
I mean they're different,
for,
but they're both amazing.
More than like 5 seasons, that's pretty well established in its story, is just that in 10 years can people still find it funny and laugh and enjoy it or have good memories of it, which is all I really hope for.
Yeah, I think it is that evergreen kind of humor. I mean, I know for me, last night I was watching the brisket episode, which is sort of a famous episode with Annie Potts and going head to head and not wanting to sort of share her recipe. And I was eating dinner, and I do feel like one of the greatest joys in life is eating food while you're watching food on TV.
Oh,
There's something magical about that.
Oh, it's incredible.
Yeah, but I had such comfort in having, my wife was gone and I was alone and I had Young Sheldon on and I just felt, very comforted, like a warm blanket. So I think you've already succeeded with that.
And we had a great dinner together, didn't we?
We did have a great dinner. It wasn't the brisket. I was looking for the cumin. They should release a Young Sheldon cookbook at this rate because
had people ask me constantly for the brisket recipe. And I'm
yeah.
always like, I know the first 4 ingredients, and if I knew more, I would be leaking it so fast. I need our writers to come up with a proper brisket recipe, because one of our writers, Steve Malaro, is a really, really, well, he's a really fascinating guy, but he had a blog a little while ago, like 20 years ago, I think. He was actually the one who started the non-pizza left beef meme from... I don't know if I'm allowed to say company names. From a pizza company. When ordering was a very new thing, he ordered non-pizza left beef. So they gave him a bread with beef on one side. But
an open sandwich.
Exactly. You could fold it over and have a very, very dry, unappetizing sandwich.
Bury me in that.
But he had a blog about prison food. And he would create really, really odd and, frankly, didn't always seem the most appetizing, but cool to see him try foods.
Yeah.
Probably come up with a brisket recipe that would be quite palatable.
I think you and Annie should do that and put out a cooking video, and everybody will make this brisket, and we can hand it out in Times Square or something, because it was mouth watering. And I know sometimes on TV shows they're spraying it with things that you wouldn't actually want to eat, but it looked great.
Okay, that's actually a point I gotta make. We had a prop food kitchen on Young Sheldon that was amazing, to the point where I would, rather unprofessionally, ask for to-go boxes of stuff sometimes.
No, that's
eco-friendly. And it would end up just being my dinner, because the food that we ate there was so good. And it says a lot if you can sit in a... People don't know, but those dinner scenes took us 6, sometimes 7 hours to film. They were a new kind of torture, because think about the way the table's laid out. If you have... 6 people, if you have George, Mary, Missy, Meemaw, Georgie, and Sheldon, you have them in that pattern, and you need to get shots of everyone's faces, sometimes shots with multiple people in them if there's reactions between 2 people, insert shots of the food, and there's just all sorts of specific, and also establishing the dinner scene, and there's so much that goes into one 30, 45 second long dinner scene. It is hours of filming. And it says a lot that if you can sit there for 6 hours and eat that food and then want it for dinner, it was very, very good. And I'm vegetarian, and they were also super accommodating about that. It was the best vegetarian food.
That does sound like a great sort of review of the food. I mean, you're a great reviewer, but I wonder too, because then if you pick up the fork in a certain line and you start to eat, then you have to do that for the full 6 hours, and then they sort of say like, make sure you're not chewing on TV, otherwise, that's hard to do. Did you struggle with that? I mean, as kids, you probably were just sort of like, whatever.
Well, I've got a black hole stomach. I can eat a lot, but I would definitely get the advice of, don't overeat. But one great thing is, again, when they're over your shoulder and they're not seeing your face, you can fake it. But yeah, you need to kind of map out where you're eating in the scene, and kind of also where you'd be eating in between lines. And it's funny because sometimes I would get the note that I was eating too little, which would be kind of funny because I'd be like, okay, well, now I have to find a place where I don't have a line coming up that I can chew on,
They're like, eat more!
Eat more, yeah. No, it's always funny to look back on those scenes because even I get fooled by it watching on TV, and then I think, no, that was like a 6-hour scene, and I had 2 more scenes after that, and that was like a 9.5-hour workday.
Yeah, so much was into it. Like we were sort of saying before, there's so many different departments, so many hours, and people don't realize that, which is the magic of television. You're sort of reminding me when I did a commercial once. It was like a gum commercial thing, and they kept screaming, "Chew bigger," because you on screen you sort of have to be like showing that you're chewing this gum.
This gum that I'm chewing in my mouth right now is pretty good gum. Go buy this good gum.
I always wanted the gum from Willy Wonka that sort of tastes like different, like a Thanksgiving dinner, all that kind of stuff.
Oh my gosh, that would be incredible, minus the last course.
Yes, please. Well, what is your favorite food while we're on the food topic? Because where else would we go?
Oh, you're a mean man. You're a mean man.
I know, but I just want to talk about food a little bit longer.
The fact that this is a harder question for me to answer than the what's your favorite show question is a little sad, but I gotta say, I love kosheri, which is like Egyptian street food. Really, really good.
Never had it.
It's amazing. I think there might be... Where are you right now? Oh, if you want... Oh, no. Afterwards.
I'm locked in a room. No, I'm in Connecticut.
No. Help. Blink SOS in Morse code.
Oh, yeah. I think I did.
May I ask what state you're in? Also, if you don't want to answer, that's fine. Okay,
yeah, no, I say it all the time. I'm in Connecticut at Factory Underground Studios. So I am technically in a basement. But, I'm not locked in.
Yeah. Good to know. But,
I'm not locked in, yeah.
I'm not in a basement. I was going to say, I think in New York there's some good places. I don't know about Connecticut, but where I am, there's a place near us that's really good. And also in London, there's a couple good...
Oh, yeah, I'm like 40 minutes away from the city. There's also great food in Connecticut, but...
Yeah, no, completely. And then I love pierogi, which is like Russian, like, it's like... flaky pastry with I like kartoffel pierogi, which is potato pierogi.
Oh yeah,
and it's just like potatoes and like a little bit of like herbs and spices and stuff inside of like flaky pastry. It's really, really good.
Oh yeah, I love potatoes.
I love food in general, and it's very hard for me to pick. Honestly, anything in Tennessee, I'd eat.
Oh, I love Tennessee. Have you been to Dollywood? Have you been to Dollywood? Are you a Dolly person? Everybody loves Dolly Parton.
I think we're sort of tentatively planning to hopefully go soon. I wanted to, after I have my learner's permit now, but I still need to do a lot of like the classes and stuff.
Yeah.
So hopefully when I'm on the road, we were gonna maybe drive there, and we'd alternate between who was driving, me and my mom.
Oh, congrats! It's amazing. I really highly recommend.
I got to meet the lady herself. She is
no way
so amazing. I have a photo with her, and it's I think one of the only photos in my favorited photos.
Yeah, I would blow that up and make it my wallpaper. I mean, you two are very similar in that. I feel like you're universally loved in a way. I mean, I know that's like a blanket statement. That's scary to hear.
That is, I think, the nicest thing anybody has ever said about me.
I am comparing you to Dolly Parton.
I am deeply honored, but I think it's an insult to Dolly Parton. So let's
no, you're just one of those people that I feel like leads with love, and we need more of that now more than ever. And what Dolly, world needs now is love. Okay, so one of the
impressive.
I don't know about that, but I would say another icon. You've worked with a lot of icons and met a lot of icons, and I would be remiss if I did not quickly ask you about Big Little Lies just for a second, because I loved that show. You got to work with luminaries like Nicole Kidman, Meryl Streep, Shailene Woodley, of course. I mean, what did you take away from working with them? Because you've talked a lot about like being respectful on set and learning that early on. I'm guessing this was a formative part of that lesson.
Yeah, and we also had like Reese Witherspoon.
Reese
Laura Dern.
Witherspoon,
We
of
had so
course.
many.
Oh, yeah.
It was kind of insane, and I knew to a degree how insane that was and how incredible those people I got to see and act with were, but also at the
Yeah.
same time, I think I was like looking back, I'm still sort of shocked that I got to be part of that. But really, at the
It's
heart
so
of it all
good.
was, by far, at the heart of it all was our director, Jean-Marc Vallée,
Mm.
who was, I think, the best director I've ever worked with. Followed closely by a lady named Miss Ruby Stillwater, who is so awesome. She was the director on Young Sheldon, and I love her to death. I think
What a great name.
oh my gosh, she's incredible. I could talk about her literally for hours. She's so great, so fun, wonderful lady to work with. But Jean-Marc Vallée was the beating heart and soul of Big Little Lies. All the great music from it was all his hand-picked choices. All of those incredible shots of, all the colors he used, all the sort of everything was all from his heart. And every project he worked on, he did so many incredible projects. And I highly recommend you go down a JMV rabbit hole and see the stuff he's worked on, because he was incredible. Unfortunately, now about 2 years ago, he passed away at Christmas time due to some sort of a pre-existing, like from birth heart condition he had. He was in the best shape of his life. He was super, super fit. He would like wake up to go in plunges in the ocean at like 5 a.m. Like he was so strong and so fit. And he would do like really intense calisthenics and like very, very healthy. And his heart sort of gave out. And I am forever, just forever grateful to him for the incredible experience of Big Little Lies. And he didn't direct the second season, but he edited the second season. But nothing compares to his style of directing and to his vision. He was so inspired and such a cool, kind guy. And I think his heart was so big and he had so much love to give. I'm insanely impressed and very honored to have gotten to meet him.
Oh, that's lovely. I'm sorry. I remember reading
No,
that.
no.
What a beloved
No,
person.
getting to talk about him at any point is always great. He was such a good guy, but also getting to work with those ladies. I mean, it's hard because you think like the divas of Broadway and you think of like all the famous people, but I don't want to use diva in a negative connotation. They are, I guess, like prima donna. I don't know. I don't even know a word that could compare to how glorious and magnificent the people that I got to work with on that show were. Every single person was so talented and just so wonderful, and again, so down to earth and so humble. I think I've never met an actually talented, famous, good actor who is really seriously conceited or vain or not humble. It's interesting. I think it's one of those things where you see the jobs of everyone else on set and then you see your job and you realize that you are another person on set. And it would be stupid to be conceited about your role on a film set.
Yeah, and I think that kindness is more sustainable. What I've found in interviewing people and working on different sets is that the quote-unquote more famous someone is, usually the kinder they are because they've been around and people want to work with them. And that's kind of what it's all about. We're all just little Muppets bouncing around. And if you're a good one, people want to vibe with you. And I do feel like this, especially Nicole and Reese and Shaylin and Laura, like you're saying, they get the question all the time, is it ever coming back? Do people ask you that? Or people always like asking you? And you're like, I don't know.
Yes, yeah. I mean, from what I know, I think it is. But I kind of, first of all, I don't know exactly when. And second of all, I don't know how they're going to do it without JMV. Because even in the second season where he didn't direct, he edited it. Which I think it is going to happen. I think there will be a third season at some point. One that I would love to be on, but I have no idea of anything aside from the fact that there's a very solid chance of it happening.
Well, I hope so. I do know there's a very solid chance right now of a surprise game happening. Woo! Are you down to play?
I am ridiculously competitive. Let's go.
Okay, well then I don't want to disappoint you because it's actually not much of a game, really.
I'm ready.
There's a cheesy theme song that I'll insert here. Yeah, and I won't make you listen to it. Thank
I
the Lord.
I will hear the cheesy theme song. You will give me the cheesy theme song.
You will hear it later, don't worry.
Wonderful.
So basically, it's called the compliment game, and I reached out to someone in your life for a loving statement about you, and I'm going to read it to you, and then you have to guess who said it.
Oh, dear. Okay.
Okay.
And it's going to be a really bad one.
No, this is going to be good. And you can get like 3 guesses. People freak out when there's no rules, but there's no rules. 3 guesses, yes or no questions you can ask me. I don't really know anything. I will say This quote is very specific. It's
Okay.
it's almost a hint. So I think you'll be okay. But
Great.
I can help you if you need it. Okay. Let me put my reading voice on. Who hears that I am sad and within 10 minutes shows up at my door and sits with me and tells me how much I mean to him and how much he loves me?
I wonder who it could be. Maybe the person that I've gone on and on about loving so much. Is this person a famous and incredible and wonderful actress by any chance?
This person is by major chances.
Fascinating, fascinating. Is this person... I'm trying to think of another question because I just can't put my finger on who this might be.
I don't think you can.
Does this person have 3 dogs?
I believe this person does.
Huh. Fascinating.
And if they don't, who are you going to call?
Oh, gosh, the kennel.
Yeah, probably.
The rescue center.
We're like, North Shore
I
Rescue
think
Center.
it might be the incomparable Annie Potts.
It is Annie Potts, yes!
I love her so much, and any excuse to get to hang out with her is always one that I will take, however she feels in the moment.
I wish she could pop into the Zoom right now, but
if you, a much better surprise would be, and here she is!
And here she is! She walks in, she's behind me.
I love Annie Potts so much. She is such a good, kind person, and I'm so grateful to her for being so sweet and so kind to me always. I think at the end of our show, there was a couple, there were some moments where I think it hit a lot of people. Kind of that we'd been doing this for 7 years, and I was very surprised because I think I was one of the least affected people on set. I think the only time I really felt strong emotion about it was on the last day, on the last scene when they wrapped us all out, because we sort of clapped everyone out, and everyone got wrapped out, and then they wrapped me out last, and I sort of looked around and I saw everyone there, and I looked around the dinner. It was a dinner scene also, which was kind of a perfect scene to end on because everyone was there. And I looked around the table and I saw everybody, and it really, I think that was sort of when it caught up to me. But because I think I don't tend to be crazy negatively emotional about things like that. I tend to look on the positive side more. And I think I tend to be a pretty happy person. But
I get that vibe.
I don't know. And also at the end, there was also a couple like stressful things going on in my personal life, like just stuff that sort of made it a little hard to focus on the ending. I'd sort of rather do my job well and then come home and not be doing my job. Because I know some people were like, crying all the time on set and just having a really hard time with it. Annie not being one of them at all. Annie is incredibly professional, and I love her so much. But I think at one point, she, like everybody else, I think she kind of, I guess at least I sort of realized how lucky I was, and I always have known, but I sort of really made it a point to inform her how lucky I knew I was to get to work with her and get to be around her. And I went over to her house. We just hung out for a little while and talked, and it was nice.
That's so special. I love your love for her and how you sort of spread the word about it in your interviews, and it comes through, and it seems like it was such a special time and dynamic in your life, and I'm sure it will continue. And before I let you go, I did want to ask you, looking at sort of that emotion difference between everyone on set, Sheldon was such a fish out of water. And, wow, my jersey kind of just came out there. Fish out of water. I am from Jersey.
A fish out of water?
Fish out of water? Ooh,
a harbor?
I'm like, dog? Did you have a dog? 3 dogs. So I wonder with that fish out of water vibe, it does seem like almost every episode he's almost learning how to be a kinder human. Like he knows, he has all this knowledge, but he doesn't have sort of the social emotional awareness necessarily. Being in that perspective, did that teach you anything about the world, about kindness, about treating other people with love?
Yes, I think it's kind of funny because I think I tend to be sort of the opposite of Sheldon in terms of intelligence. I'm certainly no physics whiz, but at least I hope I'm pretty socially smart to a degree at least, and I love meeting people. I love getting to make friends. That's my favorite thing in the world. And I my grandma often says about me that when I was little, we'd be in New York together, and we still go to New York together all the time, of course. But she would say when I was little, sometimes I would say, come meet my friend, and she would never know if it would be a kid my age, an 80-year-old woman, a homeless man, could be a puppy dog, could be a whatever. It would just be someone or something completely random. I've always been lucky to get to be around so many people that are very just such a diverse group of people in terms of, I was born in Savannah, Georgia. I've grown up in Virginia, New York. We live out in LA part of the year sometime, when we're filming, and for the past 9 years we have been. And so it's sort of wild. I know a lot of people from the south to the north to the east to the west, and people with all sorts of different political views, religious views, views on life, views on raising kids, views on all sorts of issues, views on war, views on everything. And I think getting to have a very sort of that I think that's a really important thing, to get to know a lot of people with a lot of different interests and ideas, and getting to interact with them all in meaningful ways is really important to me. And I think no one's ideas or beliefs should ever be ruled. Everyone has something to teach you, and you always have something to learn. And it can be a cautionary tale. It could be a thing that they're teaching you not to replicate. It could be a behavior that you really don't agree with or don't like, but you're still going to learn from it. And I think that's what Sheldon, we kind of see him doing as the show progresses, is learning from people and becoming, at the end, maybe a better person. And I always hope, whatever I do, whoever I'm interacting with, that at the end of the day I can be a little bit better, because I think there is always room to grow. And the second you stop loving life and loving learning and loving learning from people, is your life is essentially over at that point. If you think you've learned everything, there's nothing left to learn.
Yeah. And being curious is so much fun. I recently spoke with someone who said everyone wants the answers, but having questions is underrated. And as you get older, you stop having so many questions, and you look back and you think, oh, it's so fun to wonder and go on that journey. So I think that's really beautiful advice. And I usually end these episodes by asking for a tangible kindness tip. But since we're out of time and you kind of just gave one for listeners, unless you have anything else to share, I think that was pretty epic advice.
Yeah, no, you're very, very kind, which seems on brand for you. I think the tangible kindness tips, I almost would just be like, just be kind. It's such it's funny because it's like using
that's what Carol Burnett said.
The word you're trying to explain in your explanation. But I think just try and reach out to somebody in your life who either is maybe going through a hard time, or you haven't spoken to in a while, or you think just might. Just reach out to somebody in your life who you think might need it, and try and relieve their pain or their stress a little bit. I think is one that I think will help somebody in your circle. So take care of the people that are around you, first and foremost. But also, go out in the world with a smile. You're never fully dressed for that one.
You're never fully dressed. That was beautiful advice. Thank you, Iain. It was such a joy to have you. I'm so grateful that we have you in this industry to continue to watch, grow, and to look up to, because you're such a great role model, I feel like, for a lot of people. So thank you.
I feel the exact same way about you. You're wonderful. And if you ever need me on the podcast again for any reason, or for a quote for somebody, I'm happy to.
Oh, well, let's co-host the rest of the season. No, thank you so much. Tune in to the Art of Kindness podcast now, wherever you listen to podcasts.